Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So today's tutorial is about a beaded home decor vase or a flower jar. So with this project, I'll be using a size 12mm crystal bead. That's what I'll be using today to make this flower jar. This is size 12. This is how it's looking like, a size 12mm crystal bead. That's what we'll be using today. I have here my 50-pound fishing line, and I have my cutter to cut any loose thread. Let me push this aside and let's get started. This vase is simple to make if you follow the steps. So we are going to start. This is my 50-pound fishing line that I cut, and we are going to start with 6 beads. This is a step 1. Step 1, we are going to start with 6 beads. I'm going to put all these 6 beads on the line. Like this. This is the 6 bead we put on the line. I'm going to hold both ends of my line, pull the bead in the middle so one is not longer than the other, okay? So this is our 6 bead we put on the line, and we are going to make a ring of this bead. So I'm going to tie here in the middle. I'm tying in between these 2 beads over here. Tie nice and neat. I'm tying in between these 2 beads, okay? And now we form a circle of 6 beads. This is how it's looking like. Now I'm going to hold one line and go through this bead over here. I'm going to hold my right line and pull through 1 bead. Pull through 1 bead like this. Now we are going to start step number 2. This is how the ring is looking like, okay? Now this is my right, this is my left, and on my left line I add 5 bead. I add 5 bead to my left line. I'm going to hold the last one and cross with my right line and pull down like this. Now my right line again into the next bead. I pull my right line into the next bead. I add 4 bead to my left line. I'm going to hold the last one and cross with my right line and pull. Again, my right line into the next bead, this one. Pull through the next bead. On the left line, this line, I add 4 bead. I hold the last bead, then I'm going to cross it with my right line and pull. Now into the next bead again. I'm pulling my right line into the next bead. My left line, I add 4 bead to my left line. I cross with my right line and pull. My right line again into the next bead. I add 4 bead to my left line. I cross with my right line and pull. So now we are coming to complete this second step. Now my right line, I'm going to go to these 2 bead over here. This is the first one, and here is the second one. I pull my line through 2 bead, okay? And now my left line, this is how it's looking like. So if you see the line is in 3 bead over here, 3 bead. And I'm adding 3 bead to my left line. I add 3 bead to my left line, this time not 4 but 3. Okay, that is what we are going to use to complete this second step. And now I'm going to tie this step over here because my beads are a little bigger. I'm going to tie over here before I continue weaving. I'm tying in between these 2 beads over here, nice and neat, like this. Okay, now my right line into the next bead. I'm pulling my right line into the next bead. This is the step 3 I'm going to start. And my left line into this one. I'm going to pull it through this bead over here. And now my line is in 2 bead. As you can see, my line is in 2 bead. So my left line again, I add 4 bead to my left line. Into the next bead, I'm pulling through 1 bead, okay? This 1 bead. And I add 3 bead to my left line. I'm crossing and pull. Now my right line again into 2 bead, 2 bead. Pull into 2 bead. Now my left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. I'm going to cross and pull. Right line again into the next bead, 1 bead, okay? This time I pull through 1 bead. On my left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. I hold the last one, cross with my right line and pull down. So this one into 2 bead. I'm going to put my right line again into 2 bead. I add 3 bead to my left line. I cross with my right line and pull. Now my line again into 1 bead. Now I'm adding 3 bead to my left line. 3 bead, cross with the right line and pull. Now I'm going to pull my right line again into 2 bead, 2 bead. Pull it through 2 bead. And on my left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. Cross and pull. Into the next bead, I pull through the next bead. I add 3 bead to my line. Cross and pull it down. Now into 2 bead. Into 2 bead. For the right line into 2 bead. I add 3 bead to my left line again. I cross with my right line and pull. Now I'm going to pull my right line again into the next bead. This is 1 bead over here. I add 3 bead to my left line. So over here my line is short. I'm going to tie here, and then before we continue, I'm going to tie in between these 2 bead over here. I tie nice and neat. So I'm going to weave the rest of this line back into, this is how it's looking like, okay? I'm going to hold these lines, weave it back a little bit into the bead before I trim it off. That way I know my line is well secured in the bead. So I'm going to go ahead and weave a little bit back into the bead before I trim it off. So this is a fresh line that I cut, and this is where I stop this bead, okay? I'm just going to slide this line into the bead. I'm just going to pull it through. This is the bead that I stopped on, okay? That is where I tie my line. Right line into the next 2 bead. So for those of you who want to know how to add a new thread to your project, that is how you do it, okay? Adding a new thread is easy, not hard at all. So now my line is in 3 bead, and on my left line, I'm adding 3 bead to my left line. Like this, cross with the right line and pull. So here, I'm going to pull through 2 bead again. Bring my line through 2 bead. And I'll be adding 2 bead to my left line, cross and pull down. And now we have come to the end of step 3, and this is how it's looking like. This is the step 3 that we completed, and now we are going to start step number 4. So my right line into the next bead. I'm pulling my right line into the next bead. And on my left line, this is how it's looking like. Okay, my line is in 2 bead. My left line, I add 4 bead to my left line. I hold the last one and cross with my right line and pull. Now my right line again into the next 2 bead. Next 2 bead, that's what I'm going to pull my line through. This line, 3 bead. I add 3 bead to my left line, cross and pull down. Now into 2 bead again, I'm going to pull my line through 2 bead. And I'll be adding 3 bead to my left line, like this, cross with the right line and pull. Now into 2 bead again, I'm pulling my right line into the next 2 bead. Go through the 2 bead. I add 3 bead to my left line. Cross and pull. My right line into the next 2 bead. I'm pulling through the next 2 bead. Go through the next 2 bead. And on my left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. I'm going to hold the last one, cross with my right line and pull down. Now into the next 2 bead. One line into the next 2 bead. And add 3 bead to your left line. I add 3 bead to my left line. I'm going to hold the last bead. This is 3. I add to my left line. Hold the last bead and cross with the right line and pull. Into the next bead again, the next 2 bead. Go through the next 2 bead and add 3 bead to your left line. So as you notice, this step, I'm pulling my line through 2 bead and adding 3 bead to my left line. Okay, into the next 2 bead. That is what we are going to repeat on this step. I'm pulling my line through 2 bead. Then on my left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. Cross with the right line and pull down. Into the next 2 bead again. This is how it's looking like so far. Now I'm going to add 3 bead again to my left line. I'm crossing with my right line and pull. Now into the next 2 bead. I add 3 bead. Cross and pull. We are about to complete this step. I want everybody to make this vase for the home decor. Very beautiful vase. That's why I'm taking my time to weave all for everybody. This is how it's looking now. I'm going to pull through the last 2 bead. Okay, this is the last 2 bead over here. This 2 bead. So pull my line through the last 2 bead. That is one, and this is the second one. I'm going to pull through again into this bead. Okay, pull through, go up into 1 bead like this and pull. So as you can see, my line is in 4 bead. This 4 bead over here, that is where my line is. I need only 2 bead to complete this step. 2 bead. I'm going to hold and tie. So this step, I tie nice and neat because I don't want to have any loose thread in my work. I'm tying nice and neat over here. This is how it's looking like. Step 4 is completed. Now step number 5. So I'm going to split these 2 lines into these 2 bead, this and this one. I'm going to hold the right one into this bead, into the right bead, the bead on the right over here, and I'm going to hold my left line, this one, into this one, the bead on the left, right here. So as you notice, my line is in 2 bead. Line is in 2 bead. Now let's continue with this step. I start with 4 bead. I'm going to put my line again into 2 bead. I'm pulling my line through this 2 bead over here. This is how it's looking like. This is the starting of step 5. This is how it's looking like. And on my left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. I'm going to cross the last one with my right line and pull. Into the next 2 bead again, my right line into 2 bead. Pull through 2 bead. And on my left line, this 2 bead, okay? My left line, I add 3 bead to my left line. Cross and pull down. This is how it's looking like into the next 2 bead. I add 3 bead to my left line. Cross and pull down. Into 2 bead again. I add 3 bead to my left line. I add 3 bead, okay? I cross and pull down. Again into 2 bead. Add 3 bead to your left line. Cross and pull. Into the next 2. I add 3 bead to my left line. Cross and pull down. Into 2 bead. I pull my right line through 2 bead. As you notice, my right line, I'm pulling my right line into the bead and adding the rest of the bead on my left line. Okay, so my right line again into the next 2 bead. And on my left line, I'll be adding 3 bead to my left line. Cross and pull. Into the next 2 bead again. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also, turn on your notifications for any new videos that I'll be uploading so you don't miss on any. Okay, now I add 3 bead to my left line. I cross and pull. Now into the next 2 bead again. Into the next 2 bead. I'm putting my right line into the next 2 bead. I add 3 bead to my left line. I'm going to cross with my right line and pull down. Now we have the last 2 into the last 2, okay? This is the last 2 bead over here, this one. I'm going to pull through them pulling through the last 2 beads. Now come up 1 bead, this one. I'm going to pull through this one too. I add 2 beads to my left line. I'm going to cross and pull down like this. Now step number 5. This is how the weave is looking like, and we are going to continue with step number 6. So my right line, I'm going to pull into the next bead. I have my line into 2 beads. Now my left line, I add 4 beads to my left line. Cross and pull down. Into the next 2 beads, my right line into 2 beads. I add 3 beads to my left line. Cross with the right line and pull. My right line again into the next 2 beads. I add 3 beads to my left line, like this, cross and pull. Into the next 2 beads, I add 3 beads to my left line. I add 3 beads, okay? I pull my line through 2 beads, then I add 3 beads to my left line. Into the next 2. I add 3 again to my left line. So this step is the same as how I weave the 4th and 5th step. I go through 2 beads and add 3 beads to it. So I go through 2 beads with my right line, then I add 3 beads to my left line. Cross and pull down. Into the next 2 beads. I add 3 beads to my left line. So I'm going to pull through the next 2 beads and add 3 beads. I don't want this video to be too long. I put the steps 7 to 12 in the second video, which is also out today. So please click on it and watch to complete your vase. Into the last 2. This is the last 2 beads that I'm going to pull my line through. This is the last 2. And I'm going to come up 1 bead, this one. I'm pulling through this bead over here. So the number of beads I need, 2 beads to complete this step. I need 2 beads. And I'm going to pull through and pull. And this is how the step 6 is looking like. I'm going to end this step over here, so we continue in the second video. Please click on the second part of this video so you can learn how to complete your vase. Thank you.